Alright guys, so welcome to my channel. My name is MYYAH. Just a brief disclaimer, I'm not a storytime teller, yet I am a person with stories to share, thus being the reason why I'm sharing this experience publicly. Yet nonetheless, I want to forewarn you all that I am not a melodramatic person. I try to remain as authentic as I am within my real life on camera. So as real as these experiences are, that's how I attempt to convey them on camera. So I do apologize if I'm not as melodramatic as seen cinematically. I do apologize if I'm not a telenovela or your typical YouTuber storytime teller. But nonetheless, I feel like this story is of a what the fuck? What? I feel like the story is of a sustenance value. Look, I don't even know if that's a word at this point now. I never said sustenance in that way or substance in that way, but I feel like this story is of a sustenance value, and hopefully my intent is executed properly to where you guys receive the message of the story time. So something that I always like to do, especially on my channel, I love to explain the origins of my messages, the origins of my stories. So there's this woman by the name of Bobby Brown on Facebook, and she said, "You can't miss a sign from God. It will get louder and louder." And prior to seeing her post, my cousin made a post that essentially equivalated or was equivalent to, so essentially it was like my cousin was saying how on her friend stories she would affirm them, she would compliment them, yet when she would post something on her story, she would receive nothing at all. So that was the first post that I saw. That was the initial post. And then proceeding was the post that Bobby Brown said. And that kind of was like my confirmation, because in my head I was like, that reminds me of an old friend group that I used to be a part of. And I even discussed this within my empath video and my broken bird syndrome video. I did this frequently. I'm not going to say that I do this now, but I definitely did this frequently, where I would just get into relationships because I saw what was good about a person or what was good about that environment and or dynamic, and I would just proceed on the basis of what was good. Although I acknowledged what was bad, I was like, we can worry about that later. Like, it's not that big of a deal because this is what's good. This is what's good. Like, I really have this perception where I am both a realist and an optimist. So it's like I see reality, but I'm also optimistic. Like, well, there is good too, even though there's bad. So it was like I wanted to talk about it, but I didn't know if I needed to talk about it. But when I saw Bobby Brown say what she said, it reminded me of how that relationship progressed after taking note of subtleties, to say the least. You know what I mean? Like, things will continue and you hear God and you'll see God, but you just dismiss it. You're disobedient. And honestly, this is just a story of disobedience. I was so disobedient to God. I was so disobedient to myself. And not to suggest that these women were toxic people, but the relationship became toxic. And that's one thing about it. When you discuss abuse, when you discuss toxicity, when you discuss negativity or anything that is bad, sometimes we have this perception that in order for it to truly be an abusive relationship, you have to be physically assaulted. You have to be verbally assaulted in a way that is blatant. Like, you have to be called a stupid bitch. But honestly, in that relationship, although I wasn't called a stupid bitch, you know, I was treated like I was a stupid bitch. You know, you can be in an abusive relationship, you can be in a toxic relationship and be mentally manipulated, emotionally neglected, spiritually depleted. And that's almost as equal to being physically assaulted, verbally assaulted. You know what I mean? And even if not verbally assaulted in a direct manner, you can be verbally assaulted indirectly. And I'll further explain with this story. So getting to the point, we're getting there, we're almost there. Okay, so detailing the former relationship, prior to it becoming what it became, there was already a pre-existing relationship that existed prior to the former relationship's development. So for example, there were two young women by the name of Leo and Scorpio. They befriended each other within high school, and continued their friendship into college, at which I met both Leo and Scorpio through the YEARP program. Now, YEARP was a career developmental program that consisted of 6 months of learning and development and 6 months of internship. It was essentially affording us the opportunity to, I don't even feel like detailing this anymore. I did so many videos explaining what YEARP is, so if you want to know, just look at those videos. We were divided into learning communities, so it was Blue Chip and Gold Standard. Me and Leo were in Gold Standard, and Scorpio was in Blue Chip. So we rarely crossed paths because we were in separate learning communities. So by default, and given proximity, me and Leo grew closer than I would say myself and Scorpio, yet nonetheless, we were still close. We were still friends. But I just felt more familiar with Leo than I did Scorpio. So at times, we would be a partnership, both me and Leo. Then at times, when Scorpio came around, we would become a trio. And then sooner or later, we would welcome this other woman by the name of Libra and become a quad. And then later on within our relationship, towards the end, we became a cross-gender relationship. And to every relational success and or failure, I always question what attracted me to this person. What created the notion within my mind that suggested that this relational dynamic was healthy enough to expand upon. And when I asked myself this question long enough, I realized it wasn't just my attractions as it was what I was attached to and what they were attached to that attached us to each other. Because when it became unhealthy, when it became toxic, it wasn't the attractions that were keeping me. I was attached. So I had to then question my attachments. What was I attached to? And a lot of it was karmic relationship. And a lot of that karmic relationship was deeply rooted within trauma. It was trauma bonding, and that trauma bonding furthermore revealed itself as parental strife and or parentification, maybe past tense and or present tense. And I'll expand upon that further. So parentification essentially is a parental strife. If not, it can cause a parental strife as the roles are reversed between parent and child. So say, for example, you're a daughter and your mother acts in a way that is very youthful, almost adolescent-like, quite juvenile. And because of this lack of development and or evolution, the daughter now has to evolve quickly to compensate for what her mother is not supplying unto her. So now the daughter becomes the mother, whereas the mother exists as a daughter. So that essentially is parentification. And as you can see, this could very much so cause a strife because it's like the daughter can't be a daughter because the mother doesn't want to be a mother. And honestly, when you think of parentification, this too speaks to a higher level or notion of trauma, because it's like, why would the parent stagnate themselves within a stage of development that they have obviously surpassed, physically? So I'm not going to detail that any further because I did do a commentary of this on my channel as I related it to the film Uptown Girl. So if you want to check that out, you can check that out, shameless plug. But nonetheless, that's parentification. Starting off with Scorpio, her situation was more of cohabitation. So Scorpio immigrated to the States around the years of high school, if not the later end of middle school. And to what I know of, I don't believe that she transitioned to the States with her mother. The only people that I ever saw within her household was her aunt and her father. So her father was present, but he wasn't really active. And to what I know, her mother was not present and or active within her life. And although she had her aunt around that could serve as a maternal influence, she really wasn't that maternal nurturement. Scorpio even shared with me that she didn't feel like her house was a home. She literally confirmed that she was cohabitating with her family. As far as Leo was essentially emancipated from her parents. Sadly, she was bereaved of her father at a young age, so her father wasn't present, nor was he active. And to what I know with Leo, she didn't have the best relationship with her mother. So it is just to be assumed that her mother really wasn't present and or active. Not to say that she couldn't be active and or present, but they just had a really bad relationship, to what I know and how she would speak of her mother. One thing about me, I'm not going to pry into my friend's business. Anything that I can share with you all, or anything that I have shared with you all, it's because they shared it unto me. I didn't ask for it. Like, they gave it to me. So, when it gets personal like that, I don't try to dig any deep. Like, I'm not going to be like, what happened to your mom? No, that's none of my business. So, for myself, my father, there really wasn't a parental strife there, but there was like a dissonance because he was in the military. So although he was present within my life and as active as he could be, if you know anything about Navy life, they go on the boat, they leave for 6 months, come back, stay for 2 months, leave for 8 more months. You know what I mean? So there was just a dissonance there between himself and I. And then for my mother and I, we share the same zodiac. She's a Libra, I'm a Libra, but everything in our chart has a bit of contrast. So I'm more of like the serious one, and she's more of like, ooh, like, let's just have fun and be youthful. So I think for her and I, the parentification came in with the polarizing polarities. And then for Libra, like I said, she, to what I knew, she was also a Haitian immigrant as well, and she lived with her cousins. She was pretty much emancipated too. She lived with her cousins. Her father passed away while we were within the program, and I don't believe that he was very much so active and or present within her life, because when he passed, she was just like, whatever, like, he's dead. Like, it wasn't even any feelings, because I don't think she was like familiarized with him. It wasn't that she was like voided of emotions because she built up a barrier, and maybe, she very well could have, but like, there wasn't any familiarity for her to be like, oh my God, like, I'm sad my dad's dead, So her father passed away when we were in the program, and her mother, I don't really know too much about her mother. I think she still had a really good relationship with her mother, because I do recall vaguely seeing like pictures on Snapchat of her mother, but I don't believe her mother could be as active and or present within her life because she was still in Haiti. So nonetheless, that was our parentification that attracted us to each other due to the attachments that we have with other people. So, closing parentification and the attraction portion of this video out, as I do critically assess attachments, I too still assess the attractions. And what attracted me to Leo, Scorpio, and Libra was just their adverse response to their trauma. So essentially the defense mechanisms that they built up to trauma, that's what attracted me. You know what I mean? Like, for example, you can experience trauma and have someone call you a dummy bitch every day. Maybe your mom or your dad was just calling you some dummy, like, stupid, idiot. And from that abuse, you develop an exterior of confidence. Even if it's not as true as it should be, you develop this defense mechanism of false and or, absolute confidence that allows you to defend yourself from the trauma that you once experienced. So that's what I mean when I say, like, I was attracted to the defense mechanisms, yet I was attached to them due to that original trauma that caused for that, a defense mechanism to be created. So that's my attractions and attachments. That's why the relationship really propelled itself. And I know I said I was trying to get off of the discussion of attachments and attractions, but I found something very interesting that I wanted to share with you all as I was discussing that, and hopefully you guys find this interesting and don't hurt me. We're going to get to the story. I really promise you we're going to get to the story. But long story short, as I was giving you the example of confidence, I too thought of how karmic relationships are a bit destructive, yet they too can be quite reformative. Because when I was discussing confidence, I'm sorry, I'm really excited right now. When I was discussing confidence, I was thinking of Leo, because if you know anything about the astrological sign of Leo, their planetary ruler is the sun. So everything revolves around the sun. Thus, everything revolves around the Leo. So may a Leo be absolutely confident or their confidence be fraudulent, they will always give off this air of confidence. And that is exactly what Leo did within our relationship throughout the entirety of our relationship. And we're not going to get to that yet. But long story short, I wanted to share that because as this was an adverse response to her trauma, firstly, she too revealed a sense of low self-esteem and low confidence, as she also demonstrated a sense of arrogancy. So adverse to something, you are simply defying what is expected. Inversely to something, you are in accordance to what is expected. So whatever her trauma was, she defied it by developing a sense of confidence. Yet also whatever her trauma was caused her to be a little questionable with self-esteem and or confidence, as she too became a bit arrogant and like self-righteous at times. So I share this to say, within myself, I lacked the confidence. And when I say confidence, I lacked the boldness to be as loud as Leo was. Like I always had the self-esteem. I always knew my worth. I always knew my value. That's how I identify self-esteem, knowing your worth, knowing your value. But confidence is just being able to advocate that and being bold. And Leo was able to do that in the way that I wasn't. So as I've written, essentially Leo would act as what I needed until I became that which she was acting as. So it wasn't that I didn't possess confidence, it just wasn't as developed as herself. And the same for her. It wasn't that she didn't, I'm sorry, I'm excited. It wasn't that she didn't possess self-esteem. It wasn't that she didn't possess absolute confidence. It's just, it was faulty at times. So we kind of helped each other out with confidence and self-esteem, if that makes any sense. So like, as it was a bit destructive and toxic, it was a bit reformative too, just depending on, you know, your perspective of the relationship and the experience. Literally almost comparable to the 80-20 rule, because the 80-20 rule can be a bit destructive, just as destructive as karmic relationships are. You know, I had the 80%, but she had the 20. She had the 20%. Well, no, wait. I had the 20%, she had the 80. So it's like toxic attraction, you know what I mean? It's just making these correlations. I do that all the time.